All right, there, everyone. A book was published that detailed a mass conversion to Christianity currently underway, currently going on in the Muslim world. It was entitled A Win in the House of Islam, and its author was the 25-year missionary David Garrison, who documents an estimated 2 to 7 million conversions from Islam to Christianity. And what Garrison saw back in 2014 appears to continue on to this day. What he saw going on in the Middle East is going on as well among refugees throughout Europe. We have a number of reports of mass conversions among Muslims to the Christian faith, particularly among immigrants and refugees in Europe. The latest report comes from Christian Today that centers on Finland, where the article cites a flood of conversions from Islam to Christianity among hundreds of asylum seekers from the Middle East. The article reports that the number of converts is so significant that evangelical Lutheran parishes in Finland have begun establishing confirmation classes for Muslim immigrants who want to become Christians. Now, while the exact figures on the number of recent Muslim converts aren't available, conservative estimates suggest several hundred in recent years converting to the Finnish Evangelical Lutheran Church. And these converts come primarily originally from Afghanistan, Iran, and Iraq. And they are in many respects completely turning away from their homeland, their extended families, since converting to Christianity is considered an apostasy worthy of death in conservative Islamic regions. So this is some pretty bold maneuvers on their part, and this phenomenon in Finland points to a wider trend among the refugees throughout Europe. In fact, back in March, Fox News highlighted how Muslim converts were breathing new life into Europe's fledgling and struggling churches. They report on a soaring number of Muslims. Those are the Fox report's words. A soaring number of Muslims, many of them refugees from Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan, who are converting to Christianity and are flocking to various Christian denominations, Protestant, Evangelical, and Catholic. Now, upon interviewing these converts, many stated that they had an earlier interest in converting to Christianity, but they were unable to do so while they lived in the Middle East, where, of course, conversions are prohibited. And still others are turning to Christianity simply to assimilate into their new country, their new future life. This was the norm up till rather recently, up to around, say, the 18th century, where if you were a Muslim and you were going to be living in Europe, well, you got baptized and began living as a Christian. That was, in many ways, what was expected of you. So then we find in Germany, which received nearly 1 million asylum seekers back in 2016, the majority of which are also from Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan. Their churches in Berlin and Hamburg were faced with so many asylum seekers wanting to convert that, get this, they held baptisms in municipal swimming pools. How's that? In fact, German evangelical leaders actually had to issue out a handbook on baptizing the converts because the number was so overwhelming. And the British paper The Guardian reported that in Austria, the Catholic Church received over 300 applications for adult baptism in just the first few months of 2016, and nearly 3/4 of those applications were filled out by refugees converting from Islam. It's really, really fascinating stuff. The Telegraph reported in January this year that even Muslims fleeing to neighboring Lebanon, these are primarily Syrian Muslims, have been converting to Christianity there as well. In fact, they've observed hundreds of Muslim refugees living in Lebanon getting baptized over the past year alone. Lebanon has a pretty sizable evangelical Christian population. It began springing up evangelical churches in response to the civil war crisis over the border in Syria. And it's really just quite beautiful how the church has stepped up to take care of these refugees, offering them daily food and clothing and bedding, hot showers, really just providing for their daily needs, their daily bread, as it were. And it's this kind of compassion that's winning people over. Now, what's also important here is that this conversion trend is corresponding with national policy. As many of you know, President Trump, as well as a number of nations in Central and Eastern Europe, have advocated admitting Christian refugees over Muslim refugees. And that has, in fact, become our national policy. President Trump, to his credit, has placed a clear premium on Christian refugees. According to a Pew Research survey from January 21st, so the day after his inauguration, 50% of all refugees coming into the United States were Christian, as compared with 38% who were Muslim. And that's how it averages out. The fact is that Christians are actually growing month by month in terms of their total percentage. So whereas in February, Christians accounted for 41% of all refugees, as of June, they accounted for about 60%. So their percentage keeps going up every month, which I think is a very, very healthy trend. Healthy in terms of our culture, that is. Of course, Obama's secularization loved bringing in cultural confusion. It loved Muslim multiculturalism and religious pluralism, because this is the fruit of secularizing globalization. All religions and cultures, they're all just constructs. They're all equally valid. They all fall outside of a thoroughly secularized public square. Well, now you're seeing the backlash against that throughout Europe, and of course here in the United States, where nationalist populist forces are far more intentional in terms of the religious complexion of their respective nations, clearly favoring Christian commitments and sensibilities as over and against those of Islam. And so make no mistake, this political policy of favoring Christians over Muslims is going to have a very practical impact on furthering conversions. The simple fact is that as long as America and other European nations place a premium on Christians for refugee status, more and more refugees are going to convert to Christianity. This has already been reported on by the British paper The Guardian, that observed how some Muslim refugees are settling in European countries and are converting because they think their odds for obtaining this permanent political asylum will improve if they're Christian. And you're, of course, going to see a continued increase in this, a continued increase in the amount of conversions to Christian culture and civilization. And while some might think that this nominal Christianization is a bad thing, I mean, for heaven's sake, by God's grace, this nominal conversion is going to lead to real internal regenerative changes for many among this refugee population. Certainly far more than Obama-led multicultural initiatives where, if anything, we're saying, please, please stay Muslim. We have no religious litmus test here because religion doesn't matter. Religion's personal and private thing. And besides, Islam is so great and wonderful. I mean, it helped establish Western civilization, didn't it? It does appear that, at least for the foreseeable future, Islamic conversions to Christianity are going to continue to grow at a record pace. God bless.